Robert Kiyosakos is your usual suspect. It's a pleasure to be back this beautiful Saturday morning, 47 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. that we are coming to you live. It's a pleasure to be back. And yeah, we are back to speak the latest from the world of football. And yeah, we'll be telling you about transfers, Ruben Amorim comments, why Lionel Messi was suspended, and things of that nature. But let's just, give this a moment's thought. It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you so much to our new community members. It's good to be back with you guys. I hope you're all doing well. I've seen, our numbers rising. We are building towards, the 2,000 subscriber mark. That's the objective for now. That's the mission. That's the goal. So thank you so much to those that were part of last night's broadcast. LFC, Emily, Bukulu Stephen, Kayode Ogbeji from Nigeria, the Arsenal fan, Pressing Kosi, and every single one of you, spirit of LFC fans, spirit of Liverpool fans. Thank you so much for being part of last night's podcast. It was a very, very worthwhile and fruitful conversation that we did have on the broadcast about, your respective teams. Getting questions there from Steve about, Chelsea winning the Premier League title, and the counter arguments that we made. Very, very fruitful conversation, I must say. So let's get it on again with this morning and see what there is for us to discuss in as far as the latest is concerned from the world of football. There is a couple of friendly games that will be coming your way. Liverpool will be in action at 2 p.m. 2:30. So we'll be looking towards that or at that, and then there's a couple of other whole games. So it's not just Liverpool that will be in action. But in as far as friendlies go, your teams are in pre-season. For example, later tonight at 11 p.m., Everton are going to be up against AFC Bournemouth in a pre-season friendly. That game is going to be played over there, I think, in the USA. And then the Major League Soccer goes on. Lionel Messi, like I've told you, was suspended. We're going to find out why that is the case. Hi, Owen. Good to have you on the broadcast. Good morning. Kindly like the broadcast, Owen. It's a pleasure to have you. Where are you joining us from? I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. So do let me know where you're joining us from. And yeah, what team do you support? Are you a Messi fan? Are you a Premier League fan? Are you a Bundesliga fan? Black Orichan. Hi, good to have you, Black Orichan, on the broadcast. It's a pleasure to be with you. Where are you joining us from? Black Orichan. Where are you joining us from? Guys, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel and help me to 2,000 subscribers. There, help your boy Robert Kiyosakos to 2,000 subscribers. We are currently at about 1,400. So thank you so much to our new community members. So do me that absolute favor and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Jackson, also more importantly, let me know where you're joining us from this morning. I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Uganda, small landlocked country in the eastern part of Africa, in case you're wondering. Hi, Jackson. Good to have you on the broadcast. Where are you joining us from? Black Orichan, where are you joining us from? What team do you support? But like I said, we will start with Lionel Messi because he was suspended after he missed the MLS All-Star game that was played in Texas. He and his teammate Jordi Alba failed to turn up for this game without prior notice, as so they flouted the rules because they were expected to be part of that game. Timan Taus, is Yamal the GOAT? Not yet. Not by a long shot. Not yet. He's only 17 years of age. He's played a little over 100 games, and that doesn't qualify you to be the great. Even if you had scored 100 goals in 100 games and that kind of thing, it wouldn't qualify you to be the GOAT. For one to be the greatest of all time, you must stand the test of time. You must do it over a long period of time, not just 1, 2, 3 seasons off and then suddenly you're the greatest of all time. It just doesn't work that way. You must win all sorts of titles as well while at it. So Lionel Messi and his teammate, are from Inter Miami. Jordi Alba were sanctioned for sitting out the MLS All-Star game. That was a 3-1 win against the Liga MX All-Stars on Wednesday in Texas. So, and according to the Inter Miami, one of the Inter Miami bosses, owner George Mas said that the player Lionel Messi is extremely upset by the decision, and in fact, you'll find some people calling that law a draconian law. But a player is expected to turn up for the MLS All-Star game. MLS All-Stars is not important. Why are they banning them? Well, I mean, it's their rules, so they get to implement them. They get to execute them the way they see fit, and the rules are the rules. While we may disagree on the importance of the game itself, and we can also disagree with the rules, for as long as they remain unchanged, then you ought to abide by them, and that was the expectation. The expectation, one, was that Messi should have given prior notice, because the player is allowed to miss this game if they give prior notice, but they had been drafted into the game and yet they missed it without giving any prior notice. For example, if a player is injured, they are allowed to, if the league verifies that, then they can, miss that game, and it could be for other personal reasons that are valid enough for them to miss the game. So yeah, that's possible. Then also, some people have called it a draconian law. I mean, it's the kind of law that it feels like many people do not agree with. I'll give you an example. We have such a kind of law back here in Uganda. I think with the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, when they invented some form of tournament called the Footballtribe, that is played across different provinces or regions in the country. And if a Uganda Premier League player is summoned by their region and they do not turn up or they refuse to turn up to play in those competitions, then FIFA can choose to sanction them for missing those games. So Messi should not sign a contract extension and go to Saudi Arabia. I do not think that should be the solution, because then that would be some maybe an emotional decision. Because how many MLS All-Star games are played across a season? Not many. It's 1-2 games really. So why would you make a life, not a lifetime, but a long life decision based on just one game? In any case, he's only been suspended. He's been handed a 1-game suspension by the MLS. But also, according to the club, that the player missed the game due to a congested fixture schedule. And if you've checked, remember, we're talking about an Inter Miami side that was recently playing at the FIFA Club World Cup. So they came straight back from that and then were supposed to play back, in the league. And it's been indeed a very congested kind of fixture for them in recent times. And you can only understand that. You can only understand that and sort of empathize with the player, or consider their reasons very valid. So, I mean, it's for me, it's quite understandable why he missed the game, but because he did not give that prior notice. Remember, that game was played on Wednesday. Tomorrow, or actually, yes, tomorrow morning. That's at 2 a.m. to a 2:15 a.m. They're going to be playing against Cincinnati. So you do have that game. Probably he figured I should rest out that All-Star game and be ready for Cincinnati. And now he's not going to be available for that game against Cincinnati. And yet they are fighting to sort of improve their league position. When you look at all the teams above them, they played at least 3 or 4 games more than Inter Miami, because Inter Miami had that schedule to deal with at the FIFA Club World Cup. So they're playing, basically they're playing catch up, in this sense. They're in 5th place with 41 points, 7 points behind the table leaders, Cincinnati. Cincinnati are the table leaders. After 24 games played, they have 48 points. So, and then Philadelphia, Nashville, and Columbus do follow there in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place respectively, while Orlando City and New York City Charlotte, New York Red Bulls, Chicago complete the top 10 in that order. So let's just wait and see. I think while it is an injustice on Messi and Inter Miami as a team, the rules are the rules. We ought to respect them even when we disagree with them. So, and yeah, I do know for a fact that they are into negotiations with Inter Miami to have his contract extended. And because it does run out, I think in December later this year. So I do not think he should be making that kind of decision to say, just because I was suspended for missing the All-Star game, then I should not renew my contract. Anyway, there's a sort of a positive feeling that he will extend his stay at Inter Miami. Very, very good player. Lionel Messi there, one of the greatest of all time. Good morning, and Nalmansi. Good to have you on the broadcast. I hope you're doing well this beautiful Saturday morning. It's bright and sunny out there, by the way. For those of you that are wondering, it's bright and sunny out there. So when you look at Messi's Inter Miami stats, for example, 18 matches played in 2025, 18 goals scored, 7 assists. I think in the last couple of games, about 6 or 7 games, he's been posting, verses and assists, a very, very good return on investment. In 2024, he played 22 games, scored 21 goals and 11 assists. So he's really, really doing well, even at the age of 38. So for somebody that was asking me, yes, Tausi, who was saying whether, was it you? Yes. Whether Lamine Yamal is the GOAT, just look at Messi's numbers, even at the age of 38. What happened to Messi? Messi has been suspended for one game by the Major League Soccer for missing the All-Star game that was played on Wednesday in Texas against the Liga MX All-Stars. That game that was won by the ML All-Stars by 3 goals to 1. So he missed that game without giving any prior notice. Alongside his teammate Jordi Alba, they did not give any prior notice and yet they had been drafted in that team. So he's been suspended for that, for one game. But they'll get over that eventually. They'll get over that and move on. Then quickly, let's move on away from Lionel Messi and his suspension and go to where the drums are sounding the loudest, and that's in the city of London, where Arsenal fans are really, really excited. They are extremely excited following the arrival of Viktor Gyokeres in London. He did arrive in London last evening ahead of completing his medicals today to become an Arsenal player. Excuse me. Yesterday, we did get reports that as soon as apparently when Andrea Barton informed Viktor Gyokeres and his camp or his family that the deal was as good as complete between the clubs, between Sporting Lisbon and Arsenal, that the player and his family were in tears. I do not know whether tears of joy or tears of sorrow or tears of celebration, but I believe more the former than the latter. So, because it's that kind of transfer saga that has dragged on for quite some time, for I think more than 3 weeks. So almost a month, coming on a month, when negotiations went back and forth, the players' fury for accusing Sporting Lisbon for being in breach of the gentleman's agreement that they had, that he would be permitted to leave for a total of 70 million euros, 60 million euros being the guaranteed fees, plus 10 million euros in add-ons. That gentleman's agreement arrived at prior to the start of last season, and that kind of thing. Then, Arsenal are going with that impression or that information that sort of troubled negotiations there over deal, and then the Sporting Lisbon president, Francisco Verendas, almost just stamping, saying that the ball was in their court. The player still being under contract for the next 3 years, that he was going to be fined. He would have to apologize to the group, and that kind of thing. And that the sooner the transfer window ended, the better it would have been. That they wouldn't be arm-strung or arm-twisted into making a deal for less the valuation that they did believe the player is of, and that kind of thing. But that all notwithstanding, yes, the player went on strike. He was furious with his bosses. He went on strike, refusing to return to training when he was expected to return to training. I think that was sometime around, it was Friday 11th. Yes, I think he was initially expected on Thursday the 10th, with an extension to Friday the 11th. Around that period, he missed that. Yes, he was expected back on Thursday the 10th of July, and with the deadline being 11th Friday, but he missed all that and he went on strike. So once he went on strike, we had a transfer saga on our hands. But eventually, everything fell in place. I think about a week later, Arsenal. Actually, it was after that. That then Arsenal on Sunday, around Sunday the 13th, that it, or was it around that period when it broke to us that actually it was prior to that, 6th July there. I think that is when we got the news that Arsenal had reached up an agreement on personal terms on a 5-year contract with the player. And then once he missed his deadline to arrive for training, the Francesco Verendas issued that statement, on Saturday the 12th. And yet the following Sunday, which was Sunday the 13th, they reached an agreement in principle over a total package for the transfer of the player. That's after his agents had, offered to miss his 10% commission in this deal. He surrendered that, and the two clubs were able to reach an agreement on a transfer fee in principle. Then the subsequent Sunday, which was last Sunday, the 20th, the expectation was that, Arsenal would, have reached already total agreement in terms of a payment structure for the deal, what the add-on structure would be, and that kind of thing. And yet that did not happen. So it went on until midway this week that they eventually reached a total agreement. Those figures we've spoken about. The total transfer fee is 73.5 million euros, 63.5 being the guaranteed fees, around 55 million pounds, and then about 8.7 million pounds in add-ons. And how those add-ons are going to be achieved. The first batch of add-ons is 5 million euros, and that will be achieved in the structure of 20 appearances. So for every 20 appearances for the club, that's Arsenal, then Sporting Lisbon will get about 1.2 million euros, 1.25 million euros until, that's so meaning if Viktor Gyokeres plays at least 60 games for Arsenal next season, then they will have arrived to that figure, because it's 1.25, I think, times about 3. You eventually, or times 4, you eventually arrive to that figure. If my math is not eluding me on this case, maybe it will take about 80 games for them to pay up to the 5 million euros. Then you also have, if he has a 20 goal contribution, then they will receive 500,000 for every 20 goal contribution that he makes at Arsenal, up to the tune of 1 million euros. And then you also have UEFA Champions League qualification for the next 4 seasons. Then Arsenal will be paying them 1 million euros per season for 4 seasons. So that's the kind of structure that they have reached at. So the player did arrive late last evening in London ahead of his medicals that are set to be conducted today. As we speak, it's about 8 a.m. UK time, so we should expect that maybe he's already on, because he's shown his eagerness, his urge to play for Arsenal. He's literally desperate to join the team. Whatever his reasons are, that remains to be seen. But he's shown real intent, including him sacrificing his wages in the excess of 2 million euros to try and facilitate this move away from Sporting Lisbon to Arsenal. So the medicals are going to be done today, and he will be an Arsenal player. That's if he does pass the medicals, but that's the expectation, that's the hope. I do not think that he will be failing his medicals. So Arsenal fans, be excited, because after completing his medicals today, the expectation is that he will fly out to Singapore to join the rest of the team. And apparently, there's a bit of excitement and a happy mood within the Arsenal camp in the expectation of the arrival of Viktor Gyokeres. So that's the man that will be joining Arsenal today. While staying at Arsenal, let's quickly look at the other position because Viktor Gyokeres, by the way, has chosen the shirt number 14, legendary shirt number. We all know what Thierry Henry did in that shirt. Arguably the best player in the Premier League era. Arguably the best Arsenal player that has ever played for the Gunners. I think without a doubt. So it has been previously worn by players like Theo Walcott, players like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Edin Ketia. I think it was only Aubameyang that did that shirt number justice, including winning the FA Cup title in 2020, the Community Shield, I think on two different occasions. Remember, he was Arsenal captain and that kind of thing. So really impressive work by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I remember he was very, very disappointed when he left Arsenal because under the circumstances in which he left, but he will always be a Gunner. At some point, of course, he left for Barcelona, then joined Chelsea at some point before returning to France, where he played for Olympique Marseille and then went to Al Qadash in the Saudi Pro League. And he has since returned to France. He is going to play for Olympique Marseille next season. Anyways, still staying at Arsenal, Andrea Bata is exploring a potential deal to sell Gabriel Jesus this summer. Clubs in his native country of Brazil have inquired, as have some European clubs. Let's see if the situation develops further. That's according to the hand of Arsenal. Now, I've said this before, that heading into the summer, the expectation for Arsenal was that they were going to sell Gabriel Jesus. Unfortunately for Arsenal, the player suffered an anterior cruciate ligament injury, which usually takes a minimum of 6 to 9 months for a player to recover from. And we've seen Gabriel Jesus has been on some form of a PR campaign on his road to recovery. He's doing a lot of gym work, having a slight kick on the ball, a bit of juggles here and there in the gym. I've not yet seen any clip on him on the turf. But he's undergoing his rehabilitation. So yeah, Andrea Bata is looking to move him on. And he's not the only player that they want to move on. Rich Nelson is among those. Fabio Vieira, they want to move him on. Albert Samilo Konga is another player they want to move on. I've had rumors that Jakub Kivio could be moved on, but I feel that would be a bit short-sighted, moving on, a player like Jakub Kivio, given that what we've seen of Ricardo Carafiori, he tends to struggle with injuries, minor injuries that keep him out of action every single now and then. So that means for your left-footed centre-back, you still would lack a potent figure if you are to lose William Saliba. Sorry, if you are to lose Gabriel Magalhaes. I know they've signed Christian Mosquera who can play in that role, but he's a bit of a novice. He's a bit of an unknown quantity at the moment in Christian Mosquera, in as far as English football is concerned. He has not had a taste of European football. He's been at Valencia for the last 2 seasons where he made more than 7 appearances. Gives him a great deal of experience for a player of his age profile at 21. But I think it will be another huge gamble for Arsenal to take that kind of decision. Yes, I do understand they want to bring resources in, but you'd rather keep Jakub Kivio and then move on Leandro Trossard, keep Gabriel Martinelli, and then bring in a player at that left wing. In fact, what we are hearing during the course of this summer, that Arsenal would sign a left winger and an attacking midfielder. That means, and among those options is Eberechi Eze and Rodrigo Goes. Now, just imagine for a second if Arsenal were to go in the transfer market and bring Eberechi Eze and Rodrigo Goes. I think those would be, very, very significant signings. However, I think I do not know. Even though Rodrigo Goes is more talented than Rafael Leao, I'm inclined to think that I'll go with Rafael Leao as opposed to Rodrigo Goes. One, in terms of economic sense, it would be perhaps a cheaper deal for Arsenal to sign Rafael Leao than to sign Rodrigo Goes, both in terms of transfer fees, but also in wages. Maybe the transfer fee would be around the same figures, but wages would be a bit lower for Rafael Leao and that kind of thing. But also, when you look at the player's consistency, you'll appreciate that Rafael Leao has been a bit more consistent in terms of posting good numbers as compared to Rodrigo Goes. Yes, I understand the arrival of Kylian Mbappe sort of put Rodrigo Goes behind in the pecking order and things of that nature. But all that notwithstanding, I still feel that I'll take Rafael Leao, because I've seen what he does, the kind of work he does on and off the ball. I've seen his athleticism, I've seen his energy, his ability to take on players, which of course Rodrigo Goes is better at when it comes to taking on players. I've seen his finishing, I've seen the way he involves the rest of the team when he's playing, Rafael Leao. And overall, I'm not saying he is a much better player than Rodrigo Goes, but I think when you look at his numbers, they would paint you that picture. He's definitely posted some better figures than Rodrigo Goes. So for me, if it boiled down to sign Rodrigo Goes over Rafael Leao, I think I'll go with Rafael Leao. He's a player that we did speak about the other day in the aftermath of that friendly between Arsenal and AC Milan. Although he is not very consistent in terms of the numbers he does post, because his best season was in 2022-2023 when he scored 15 goals and provided 8 assists. I'm taking that over anything else. But when you look at the subsequent seasons where AC Milan, because 2022-2023, that was the season after AC Milan won the Scudetto and they were trying to win it back. I think they were still under the charges of Stefano Pioli at the time. And when they won it in 2022, he still posted 11 goals and 8 assists. So those were still very good numbers. So you can see. And then subsequent seasons, 9 goals, 9 assists, 8 goals, 8 assists in the last 2 seasons, which are, by his own standards, are below what he is capable of achieving, but still very good numbers. And yet, when you compare to Rodrigo Goes, I mean, he's not going to give you those kinds of numbers. At least he's not posted those kinds of numbers. His best season in the Spanish La Liga was 2023-2024. He scored 10 goals and provided 5 assists. So for me, and when you look at the age profile, he's 24. Rafael Leao is 26. Recently turned 26. That was on June the 10th. So for me, I'd go with Rafael Leao over Rodrigo Goes. That would be my choice. I know it's a bit of a controversial decision, but sign Rafael Leao as opposed to Rodrigo Goes. That would be my impression. But Arsenal are also exploring the market to sign Eberechi Eze. According to Miguel Delaney of The Independent, Arsenal may have to sell a player before they sign Eberechi Eze, although he says it's not entirely contingent on that. They are exploring negotiations with Crystal Palace because they do not want to pay the entirety of his credit clause, which is at £60 million plus £8 million in expected add-ons, payable over 3 installments. Arsenal are willing to go to Crystal Palace and have negotiations or entertain talks over a potential deal. They would want to do a deal that comes to a total package of about £60 million. That's with guaranteed fees and add-ons included within that sort of transfer package. But let's wait and see. Those rumors have ramped up in the last couple of hours, especially in the wake that they are going to wrap up a deal for Viktor Gyokeres. And Arsenal tomorrow will be facing off with Newcastle in their pre-season friendly at the Singapore National Stadium. Down there, that game I think should be coming at 2:30 p.m. The same way that game between AC Milan and Liverpool is happening today at I think at the same venue between Liverpool and AC Milan. So we're going to speak about that game a little more and perhaps that Arsenal game a bit more. So yeah, those are the things happening at Arsenal. Then Lucas Paqueta is said to be cleared by the FA as for sport fixing charges. That's according to the Times. You remember he's been under investigation for a very, very long time, that apparently he got yellow cards intentionally because people from his home country in Brazil and that small island of Paqueta, some of whom could be his family members, took bets on him that he would receive yellow cards in certain games. I think that was during the 2023-2024 season. And he went on to get those yellow cards. So he's always denied any involvement whatsoever, and he wouldn't be the first player to be found in breach of the anti-betting rules. Sandro Tonali, I remember he was suspended. That was for about 6 months for being found in breach of the betting rules during his time at Newcastle, where he still is, of course. But those offences had been committed while he was still, playing in Italy. So I think that's a bit of positive news. Hearing that, then Arsenal versus Newcastle, I do expect another very, very important test for this Arsenal side, especially for the new players, the likes of Christian Nogard, the likes of Martin Zubimendi. Of course, Noni Madueke is not yet part of that team because he's still on holiday, having been part of Chelsea's squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. A big test for players. Maybe Christian Mosquera gets a couple of minutes. The youngsters, Max Doman, Mali Salmon, that's the centre back, only 15 years of age. Josh Nicholas, that's the right back, only 18 years of age. It's going to be a huge test for them because Newcastle is a very, very physical side. As we know them, they're very physically imposing, very big players, tall, and the Steven Botman, Fabian Schär, Dan Ban, Bruno Guimaraes, a bit of a riffraff, Jolinton, a bit of a riffraff, and that kind of thing really. So Anthony Eranga, with all his pace and power, is going to test that Arsenal defense, whether it's Ben White. Urian Timber is not yet back training fully with the rest of the team because Mikel Arteta said they're trying to ease him back as he returned from that ankle surgery that he underwent at the tail end of last season. Zinchenko wasn't training yesterday. There was an open day training session at the stadium. Zinchenko wasn't part of that. He was wearing his sort of gym shoes, kinda. I do not know why. What's happening with him? Are they not wanting to risk him because there's a proposed transfer? We do not know. Is it a precaution for an injury that he felt an ego, something like that? Gabriel Magalhaes had not trained in the last couple of days with the rest of the team because he felt an ego. That's according to Mikel Arteta. So that game will be coming tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. On the side of Newcastle, Alexander Isak is absent from the squad, and Ed Howe, while speaking to the media, was asked about Alexander Isak, and he said he's very popular in the dressing room. Would love him to continue his journey at Newcastle. Things are going on behind the scenes. Conversations are happening between Alex, myself, and the club. They will stay private. Whatever happens has to be for the best of the club. There is no contract talks taking place. That's Ed Howe confirming that. That will be for a later date. Potentially, I certainly hope he stays. In football, who knows what the future may bring. This is the second time he's said about the uncertainty of the future in football. He went on to say how short players' careers are, things of that nature. So if you're a Newcastle fan listening to this, and I think Dennis Jokes are one of our semi-regular members on the channel, I do not think this leaves him with a bit of confidence that the player will stay when you hear these kinds of words, because they're not very, very reassuring. He's a popular figure in the dressing room. Yes, pretty much. Bruno Guimaraes said that while addressing the media over there in Singapore. I think Dan Ban also said something similar. That is without a doubt. Bruno Guimaraes said they do not want to be losing their best players at this moment. So when he says things are going on behind the scenes, I mean, what does that mean? Does it mean the player? Does that confirm that the player indeed requested to be left out of the traveling squad to Singapore? Does that mean that the news or the reports that he was left out due to precautionary injury issues is false? Does that mean that the player is asked the club to leave? Because that's what we know at this stage, that he asked the club to be let to explore his options in this transfer window, and his preference is to join Liverpool as opposed to join the Saudi Pro League clubs that are all interested in his services. Ideally for Newcastle, it would be better off if they were selling to a foreign club, if they were selling to a club other than any in the Premier League. Hi, Boss Royal. Good to have you back on the podcast. Good morning, and I hope you're doing well, and I hope you've been well in the last couple of days. do us that favor and like the broadcast, but also while you're here with us. So when you look at these comments to say conversations are happening between Alex, myself, and the club, of course, the club's preference is for the player to stay. Ed Howe would love to stay with this player at least for one season, even if they were to go out in the market and sign Lionel Messi, even if they were to go in the market and sign Benjamin Sesko, who they are heavily linked to at this moment. So because they missed out on Hugo Ekitike, they missed out on Joao Pedro. So regardless of who they bring in, it benefits Newcastle more to stay with Alexander Isak. But like I said, Alexander Isak had been promised a new contract, had been promised new contract, improved contract terms. That was by some of the previous Newcastle management. That was then changed before those contract talks would get underway. That was by Amanda Stavelli and Madad Godoshi, who were part of the management at Newcastle. That was in March last year. And then they left about 3-4 months later in July the same year. And then you have Darren Els as, the chief executive. And then he appointed Paul Mitchell, who decided that it wasn't the best time to award Alexander Isak with an improved contract. First of all, he's already one of the best players at the club. Two, he still had 4 years left to his current contract. So Newcastle were in a very, very strong position. But also, he did have to bear in mind the club's position or situation with the profit and sustainability rules, which they have to make sure they stay in the proper lines. So he chose not to award him with or to entertain contract talks with Alexander Isak's representatives. Now, that may have rubbed the player the wrong way, but he decided to stay and help the club attain UEFA Champions League football, which he says, having achieved that and also winning the Carabao Cup, then he should be let go, But however, we shouldn't rule out that contract talks can take place in the not so distant future that have the player staying. Although, according to the manager, they are not taking place at this point in time. Two, Newcastle in a very strong position. Player still has 3 years left to his current contract. What does that mean? It means that they could, decide to lock those gates and say, you're going to stay with us for one extra season and we'll let you go next summer for under these terms and conditions. For example, if a Premier League club comes in for you, we'll let you go for 120 million pounds as opposed to demanding 150 million pounds. If a foreign club comes, we'll let you go for 110 million pounds as opposed to letting you go for 125 million pounds. That's for foreign clubs. So, and that kind of thing. And they come to a general man's argument similar to what Sporting Lisbon had with Viktor Gyokeres. Now, it's not to say that Newcastle wouldn't renege that, but at least to give him some form of assurances that you will be permitted to leave next summer. So they could entertain those kinds of conversations and have the player stay, because I think it would do them a whole lot of disservice, a whole lot of injustice. It would take them miles backwards if they were to lose a player of Alexander Isak's caliber, because there's not many of those kinds of players in the market, and even if they were there, they're not available to Newcastle's disposal. That's why they are pursuing to sign 22-year-old Slovenian striker Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig. They've approached the club, they have approached the players' camp over a potential 5-year contract. Those negotiations get underway. Remember, they've missed out on their priority targets in Hugo Ekitike. They've missed out. Hi, LFC. Good to have you back this morning. They've missed out on Joao Pedro. They've missed out on Brian Mbomo, and and all the other pursuits. Really, they are good. They stand to miss out on James Trafford and that kind of thing. So the situation is not really good for Newcastle, but it is what it is, and the manager is there confirming with those less convincing terms to say that conversations are going on, things are going on behind the scenes, and of course there won't be public consumption, but he's also confirming that at the moment there are no contract talks taking place between the club and Alexander Isak. So let's just wait and see how things will develop in the coming, season, or in the coming 5 weeks to that. Then quickly, let's go to Liverpool and speak at, their game against Liverpool. We spoke about this last night. For those of you that were part of last night's broadcast, LFC being one of those usual suspects, as well as was Mariam with us? I do not think so. Whether Mariam was with us last night, but yeah, at 2:30 p.m. Liverpool are going to be in action against AC Milan. Nia says Bournemouth FC sold too many players, sold too many key players. They are going to be relegated. I think they may struggle, but I'm not yet inclined to believe that they will be relegated. But you're right on that. They've lost Kepa Arrizabalaga, who was only there on loan. So they've signed George Petrovic from Chelsea for £25 million. They lost Dean Howson to Real Madrid for £50 million after they activated that credit clause. They could lose Ilya Zabani, that's the 22-year-old Ukraine centre-back, to PSG. PSG are really, really interested. However, there is another Premier League team that are also interested in signing Ilya Zabani. I think it's Tottenham Hotspurs that are interested in signing Zabani. Yes, from Bournemouth. But also, RB Leipzig were interested in signing Justin Kluivert as a replacement for Florian Wirtz, because he's played at RB Leipzig before, so he knows the German Bundesliga a bit too well. So by the way, he's the only player I think that has played across the 5 top leagues in Europe. He's been in France. He played, I think, with Nice. He's been in the Italian Serie A. He's been in the Spanish La Liga. I think he played for AC Roma. He's in the Premier League currently, and he was also at RB Leipzig. So Justin Kluivert is one of those players with a whole lot of experience, even though he's still 26 years of age. So yes, they've lost players, but I think of course they lost Milos Kakes to Liverpool, which doesn't really do them good. And I've said this, that if they do lose Ilya Zabani to whether to Tottenham or PSG, because the players already agreed to personal terms, by the way, with PSG on a 5-year contract. It's just that PSG have not yet met the valuation of the player in regards to AFC Bournemouth. So if he is to leave, Andoni Iraola is going to struggle to rebuild that backline to get them playing comfortably with the chemistry that Dean Howson and Zabani were playing with last season. So yeah, they may struggle, but because of Andoni Iraola's abilities, and given that they could retain some of their key players like Anton Semenyo, who signed a new 5-year contract with the club, it may give them a chance to fight for their lives and stay in the Premier League. Then they also signed Adrian Kaffet from Stade Rennes as a replacement for Milos Kakes. This is a player that they had wanted to sign in 2023 before they signed Milos Kakes. So remember, Milos Kakes was signed from AZ Alkmaar. There, he also had a stint with AC Milan. But yeah, a part of me wants to agree with you. Although I do not, at present day, I do not think they will be relegated, but I think they may struggle. The other team that I think may also struggle is Brentford. They've lost the manager, Thomas Frank, and replaced him with Keith Andrews. Thomas Frank literally left with everything that he could live with at Brentford, especially the coaching staff. And the only figure that was left, Keith Andrews, is the one that has been appointed to be manager. And they've lost Brandon Mbeumo, they've lost Christian Nogard, they've lost Mark Flacken. They could lose Yohan Wissa. We all know Newcastle really, really pushing hard to sign Yohan Wissa. And Tottenham are also interested in signing Yohan Wissa. And he's asked the club to let him go if the right offer does arrive. So they're not going to be in a very good place. But also, it depends on how they replace those players and the kind of coaching staff that Keith Andrews will build around that team. Okay, I'm trying to read your name. Maestro, is it Maestro Pedri? Maestro Pedri is from Spain. Good to have you join us. He's a Barcelona fan. Thank you so much for joining us, Maestro Pedri, there from Spain. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. And by the way, I would like to pick your thoughts on what's happening with Barcelona and the whole environment in there. What do you make of Marcus Rashford? Are you excited about him as a new player? What do you think, given that Marc-Andre ter Stegen is going to undergo surgery? Do you think Joan Garcia is going to be the de facto #1 goalkeeper going into next season? Of course, being deputized by Wojciech Szczesny as they wait for Marc-Andre ter Stegen to recover from that surgery. Of course, there was an expectation that one of them that he could leave this summer, with Galatasaray being one of the teams interested. Do you play FPL? That's a fantasy Premier League. Yeah, I've played, but I'm not a very active member on that platform. I'm the kind of guy that at the start of the season will go and set up my team and leave it at that for the rest of the season. I never go back in week to update, change. What player has been injured, I pull them out. Who is underperforming, I pull them out. And that's how I do participate in fantasy Premier League football. So yeah, I'm a bit of sort of a not very active user, if I'm to say the least. It's one of those things that I can't say it didn't excite me much, but I just didn't give it all the time it deserves. I can see you say, I think Marcus Rashford will explode under Hansi Flick. Look what happened to Ferran Torres. He scored 20 goals as a substitute. Rashford will be great for Barcelona. Thank you so much for that submission. Again, by the way, a lot of people, especially non-Manchester United fans, but Premier League fans, do believe that Marcus Rashford is going to explode, that he will come good at Barcelona. They wish him well. They want him to explode, to disprove all his doubters at Manchester United. And I've said this in last night's broadcast. We were speaking about Marcus Rashford because a Chelsea fan called Bukuru Steven, also a friend of mine who works with Kuz FM in Mbarara here in Uganda, posed to me a question whether I think he will be a success or he will have an impact. And I said, let's not forget that in 2022-2023, he scored 30 goals across all competitions for Manchester United, including 17 in the Premier League and 7 assists, giving him an overall goal involvement of up to 24 goals that season. So Marcus Rashford is really capable of posting very good numbers. So I do think he will indeed explode he could explode at Barcelona. Because that was the second time he was posting a 17 goals in a Premier League season. The first time being the 2019-2020 season. So that's when actually he scored 17 goals and provided 7 assists. But in 2022, it was 17 goals and 5 assists, which gave him a 22-goal involvement. So yeah, there is a very good player in Marcus Rashford. That's for starters. That's without doubt. At the age of 27, he comes with a bit of experience in him, both in the UEFA Champions League and playing domestically, although he's never played in the Spanish La Liga, because he is the first English player to play, he's going to be the first English player to play for Barcelona since Gary Lineker in 1989. So you can see it's been a period of 36 years ever since Barcelona signed an English player, but let's hope for the best. Daniel Jukes, a Newcastle fan, says, hello, just waiting for Newcastle to do something. He comes back to say, do you think we can do more than the 150 million pounds for Isak? Do you think PSG signed him instead of Liverpool? I think Daniel Jukes, by the time you join us, I've just spoken about Newcastle and Alexander Isak situation. But for purposes of you being one of usual suspects, allow me, guys, have a do-over for Daniel Jukes. I was saying that it would benefit Newcastle more, even though it's a less of an ideal situation. It would do work for them more if you were selling to a foreign club as opposed to selling to a Premier League club, because they will be strengthening a club away from the Premier League as opposed to strengthening their opponents. The same way Bayer Leverkusen did not want to sell Florian Wirtz to Bayern Munich. They wanted to sell to a foreign club, and that's why they went with Liverpool. They were quick to entertain negotiations with Liverpool. They were also very much interested with the idea that Man City were interested in the player, although Manchester City walked away, citing that the player was overly valued or the valuation was exaggerated. So if PSG were to come in for a player like Alexander Isak, first of all, I would say it's a no-brainer, because look at PSG. The only striker they have, naturally a striker, is Gonzalo Ramos, who, by the way, doesn't, start very many games. That's for starters. Two, when they get a player like Alexander Isak, he's not an egoistic kind of player. He's good at dribbling. He has the pace. He can drift back and play the way Ousmane Dembele drifts back and helps, in the build-up play of that kind of game. And I mean, one, they do have the financial resources to sign a player like Alexander Isak, and they can afford 120 million pounds, 130 million pounds. So it would help Newcastle much more, or it would interest them much more selling to PSG than selling to a Premier League club like Liverpool, who it would mean strengthening their rivals. But I've also said that the other thing is that because yesterday in the afternoon broadcast we had Rodrigo, Hara Madrid star, the Madrid fan, saying that maybe Real Madrid should be making a move for Alexander Isak. He was saying, in fact, that they are interested, although I do not know it to be to that effect. And I was telling him I wouldn't be surprised if Real Madrid were interested in signing a player like Alexander Isak, because when you look at their forward lines, yes, they still have Rodrigo Goes. They could let him go this summer. Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Liverpool are all interested, including PSG themselves. They could let go of Rodrigo Goes. Vinicius Junior, they are still in contract talks. Apparently, things are so far not going smoothly when it comes to contract talks. But two, look at the main striker they have, Gonzalo Garcia, who has only been discovered during the FIFA Club World Cup because he scored 4 goals and provided 1 assist. There, a very good youngster that Xabi Alonso chose to trust. So, can Liverpool get 150 million pounds for Alexander Isak? Yes, and I think they could ask for that much because if you're going to lose a player of that caliber to your Premier League direct opponents, then the fee should be really, really worth it. And I was saying that maybe on the other alternative side of the discussion is that Newcastle could choose to lock themselves in and say, look here, Alex Isak, you still have 3 years left on your current contract. You're one of our best players. You're a trusted player. You're on a very good wages. Give us 1 more season and we will let you go. Let's have a gentleman's agreement that after this season, we will let you go. And if, let's say, a foreign club comes in for you, maybe Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Saudi Pro League clubs, PSG, will be letting you go for 110 million pounds to 120, with add-ons included. However, if a Premier League club comes for you, we'll let you go for 120 million pounds plus 10 million pounds in expected add-ons, as opposed to us demanding a bare minimum of 150 million pounds in this transfer window. So they could have those kinds of talks, and that, because in them setting their price too high would be sort of to try and tell Premier League clubs, if you're going to get our player, it's not going to come cheap to you. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So that will be the expectation. I can see. I think I've answered your question, Dennis Jukes. I hope you're satisfied. Then Maestro Pedri says, for Ter Stegen, we want him out at any cost because his wages are too high and he's awful. Guess what he did? He decided to do a back surgery. And I think we're going to see more of this. First of all, players within the final years of their contracts, when they are on really, really high wages, are not going to want to leave their clubs. One, because they are on high wages, and maybe the clubs that are interested in them are not willing to meet those kinds of wage valuations. So I do understand that part when you say that you would want to move him on. And by the way, I think that Deco and Joan Laporta are really considering moving on Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, because explain to me why Barcelona goes out to sign arguably the best goalkeeper last season in Joan Garcia, his age profile notwithstanding, and then handing Vokshel Szczesny a 2-year contract extension. We're talking about a player who they signed last season, calling him out of retirement to come and help the team when Andres Ter Stegen got injured. So think about that for a second. Under ideal circumstances, Andres Ter Stegen is a number 1 goalkeeper. His abilities are nothing to question about, really. And then Joan Garcia, the best goalkeeper in the Spanish La Liga last season. Even Arsenal were interested in signing him the summer before last. Last summer. And then even this summer they were still interested, but Barcelona beat them to the punch, and they offered, a moderate route to fasting football, as opposed to Arsenal, were, signing him as a backup for David Raya. Then, so you have three good goalkeepers. Explain to me why you would have three of them, and you can't guarantee fasting football. Of course, for example, they could choose to do it the Pep Guardiola way. You remember when Pep Guardiola had Victor Valdez and Claudio Bravo. One was playing in the Champions League, the other was playing in La Liga. That's how he played his cards, because they were all good goalkeepers. So I think I would agree with that on you. And then Barcelona, look at their wage bill. We know for a fact they've had struggles registering new players, while staying, in respect of La Liga's financial, regulations when it comes to, spending on wages and things of that nature. We know for a fact that Marcus Rashford is yet to be registered. By the way, Mr. Pedri, please let us know, has Joan Garcia been formally registered with La Liga? Last I checked, he hadn't been formally registered. And by the way, it's the same reason they failed to sign Nico Williams. Then you come back to say, however, in La Liga, if a player is injured for more than 4 months, we can register a player instead of him. But Ter Stegen on purpose said he will miss only 3 months. Wow. So in other words, there's a bit of power play here on the player side and the club side. He wants to hurt the club. I wouldn't be inclined to believe so. I do not think he does have the malicious intent to hurt the club. But also, I remember him being asked whether he was phased or fussed about the club signing Joan Garcia, and all he said is that he wants to stay. Let's not forget, he's the captain, but because he was out injured, Rafinha was often wearing that armband. I do not think he would want to hurt the club, but I also think when you've been at the club for that long period of time, like he has been, and you've been a captain, you've given the club everything, you would expect some bit of loyalty from the club side to sort of, you would expect some bit of loyalty from the club side to say, okay, you've been injured, but we'll still stick with you, and that kind of thing. So maybe he has sensed there's been a lack of loyalty from the club in that respect. Daniel Dukes says, Dennis Dukes, not Daniel. Dennis says, what's the chance Newcastle get Sesko? It's a bit of a difficult deal to do financially, but I think it's one that they are capable of doing. Because if you come back from bidding 70 million pounds for Hugo Ekitike, then suddenly you can afford, signing Benjamin Sesko. Now, Arsenal turned away from that deal because RB Leipzig were not willing to budge on their 90 million euro valuation of the player, and yet Arsenal thought the player is still further down in his development compared to Viktor Gyokeres. Two, according to recent reports, they have relaxed their demands to a limited number of clubs. And his valuation has gone, they are now willing to accept a fee between 70 to 80 million euros plus some 5 to 10 million euros in add-ons. So meaning for a total package of 80 million euros, you could get the player. That's, let's assume it's, let's say 75 million euros or 70 million euros guaranteed fees plus 10 in add-ons, or 75 in guaranteed fees and 5 in add-ons, around that range. And it is for a limited number of clubs. Please take that seriously. Limited number of clubs. That means clubs like Newcastle, and by that I mean tier 2 clubs, if Newcastle qualified to be a tier 2 or a tier 3 kind of club. So that means if clubs like Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, PSG, Juventus were to come and try, Inter Milan were to come and sign Benjamin Sesko, then Leipzig are going to say it's either 90 million euros or you do not get the player. But when a club, like let's say Tottenham, Everton, Newcastle, Aston Villa, maybe a club like, I do not think Atletico Madrid would be put in that zone. I do not think they are tier 2. I think they would stay with Real Madrid and Barcelona in tier 1. Maybe a club like what club? Maybe Borussia Dortmund, those kinds of clubs. If they were able to come for Benjamin Sesko, then maybe RB Leipzig relax their valuation. So yeah, he's a player that I think Newcastle would be able to afford, although it may be a bit of a difficult deal. They are trying to negotiate with his camp over a 5-year contract and see if they can reach an agreement on terms. Then Maestro says, I think Sesko is either Man United or Newcastle. Man United, I do not know. Man United are really, really reluctant on committing, but also, for me, I wouldn't encourage by the Manchester United to sign Benjamin Sesko, not out of selfish reasons in any case, because one, you already have two strikers in Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund. Joshua Zirkzee only turned 24 recently. Rasmus Højlund is still 22. That means those are two young strikers that are yet to reach their full potential, and that they are still well within their development. Why would you add on another player that is still within the same profile, still well within his development? He's a very good player, but he's not posted those astronomical numbers season in, season out, for you to be convinced that he's going to be suddenly to come in the Premier League and be an instant hit. You have no reason to believe that. He's a bit of a promising player, really. So I would rather Man United spend their 60, 70 million pounds on a player like Ollie Watkins. 29 years of age. I know he does turn 30 in December, but he's Premier League proven. He's posted at least 15 or more goals in the Premier League for multiple seasons. So he comes with that bit of experience. He's a player that Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee can learn from. He can play alongside another striker. He's very athletic. He's not injury prone. He's capable of, playing an average of 34 games in every season. So get him, Ollie Watkins, put him on a 4-year contract. By the time that 4-year contract elapses, he's about 33, perhaps with an option to extend for a further year. By the time he elapses the first 2-3 years of his contract, then you have Rasmus Højlund, Joshua Zirkzee really entering their prime, if indeed they manage to learn from him and things have started to click in place for him. Then also, I think I would rather sign Nicholas Jackson than Benjamin Sesko. And hear me out on this one again. All transfers are a gamble, because even when you sign a Premier League proven player, they can come and fail. That I know for a fact. But think of it this way. Nicholas Jackson at Chelsea, his debut campaign, he scores 14 goals and provides 5 assists in 35 appearances. I mean, it's not every day that a player comes in their debut campaign and posts those numbers, unless you're brought Erling Haaland. Because even Alexander Isak didn't post those numbers in his debut season. Of course, injuries being a contributor to that. You're not Fernando Torres, really, joining Liverpool from Atletico de Madrid. Then last season, he scored 10 goals and provided 5 assists in 30 appearances. So I think I would take a bet on, because also Ruben Amorim has told the club he would prefer a Premier League proven player. So I would rather you take Nicholas Jackson as opposed to Benjamin Sesko, even though Manchester United fans may disagree on that one. 2, if it boils down to Nicholas Jackson versus Ollie Watkins, I would argue Man United to sign, Ollie Watkins, other than any other target. Then you come back to say, thanks. Oh, okay. Dennis was responding to Mr. Pedri, saying thanks. Thought Almiron said they were done in the transfer market. Then you say, okay. I think there's a comment I skipped about Joan Garcia. No. Okay. You say, but if you watch Barcelona, you'll know how bad Ter Stegen is now. After 2018, he's got so bad. We called him the photographer. Just watch any Barcelona game. I think he's not the same player he was. That I would acknowledge. I've seen a couple of goals he's considered, and you think to yourself, an old Ter Stegen would have saved this one. Perhaps I could say maybe something a bit slightly similar, not exactly the same, but slightly similar on Jan Oblak. I've seen some mistakes that Jan Oblak has done in some games, and I said to myself, I'm like, Jan Oblak, are you really getting off your, top pace? So I do understand. Yeah, because I do watch a couple of Barcelona games, sometimes not more than just a couple. Then Joan Garcia isn't registered yet. Paul Victor left the club, so We can easily register him. Okay, let's wait for that to undergo. Ter Stegen is bad. Trust me, he's the worst player in our team. I will strive for the better. Joan Garcia is way better. Okay. The club noticed some tactics are being leaked to opponent teams about injuries and many other things, and all news reported that it was Ter Stegen because he wanted to play the away game versus Inter Milan. Really, wow, that's very unfortunate. If it is true, but if it were to be true, because let's not forget, sometimes clubs can instigate smear campaigns to try and force a player out of the club. But if it were to be true, I think Barcelona would be really desperate to move him on. I think they would even consider ripping up his contract and move him on. But let's wait and see. But Flick said no, so he wanted to get his revenge. However, he is so awful. That's why he wanted him out. Okay, Ter Stegen out. That's the hashtag that you conclude with. Anyways, we still have 5 weeks left to the transfer window. It's very rare that a club signs a player that is injured, that they know that is injured, but I've seen it happen before. Arsenal signed Tim Kalmstrom. I think it was from CSK Moscow? That was in, I think, around 2013. Actually, it was January 2014. January 2014, around that period. Arsene Wenger signed him even when he knew the player was injured. So he came in, he was injured, and he played a couple of games, including the FA Cup game against, I think, was Bromwich Albion, and I think was it against also Reading in the FA Cup. So he played a couple of games. So it's not unheard of for a club to sign an injured player, but it doesn't happen very often because it's a huge risk that you'll be taking on your hands. Rodrigo Madrid is back with us. He's here. Messi is suspended. He's laughing. Of course, he's not a Messi fan, given that he's a Real Madrid fan. Rodrigo Hala Madrid star, please, you're welcome to the channel. Mr. Pedro is here with us. He's a Barcelona fan. So you two are arch rivals. Now, Messi is suspended. We spoke about that. He's only suspended for one game. He will miss the MS League game against Cincinnati. That is coming to today or tomorrow morning. That's at 2:15 a.m. East African time. What do you think? Who do you think is winning the Ballon d'Or? I think for everything that they've won, Ousmane Dembele is a front runner because they won the UEFA Champions League, they won the Coupe de France, they won the Supercopa Hispana version. They've won 4 titles this season already. So they've won what there's that version, the way you have the Copa del Rey and the way the English have the FA and Carabao Cup. They've won all. Yes, I think it's called Trophy the Champs, something like that. That's a Community Shield version. So I think Ousmane Dembele is a front runner, given especially when we win the UEFA Champions League title. But also, I think Rafinha will be well high in that conversation, as well as Lamine Yamal. The other player that, for me, I feel that deserves to be in that conversation, although he's far from it, is Vitinha. I think he's had a very tremendous season, both at club and country. Nuno Mendes, I could say the same thing about him, because we are talking about the same team that also reached the finals of the FIFA Club World Cup and lost out to Chelsea. Vitinha, João Neves, and Nuno Mendes, these guys also won the UEFA Nations League with Portugal when they beat Spain 5-3 on penalties that proceeded a 2-all draw in normal time. So that's where the conversation is going to rotate around. And let's not forget, who was the last player to win the Ballon d'Or when they were not a forward player, in those forward 3 positions? I think that was Luka Modric in 2018. Even Rodri recently. But before Luka Modric and Rodri, you had to go back to as far back as 2006 when Fabio Cannavaro won the Ballon d'Or. But all the years in between there were based on numbers. Goal scored. At some point, we had our goal post shifted away from, from trophies won to just goals and things of that nature. But I think Ousmane Dembele is still, for me, in my opinion, the front runner in that case. You ask, I disagree. I think Lamine will win it. Dembele did nothing in the finals, which is important if you look at it. You say he did nothing in the finals, but they won it. They won it, and he was a big component of that. Whether he didn't have the best of games in the finals, that may not really hold much water. Now, again, I understand the argument for Lamine Yamal. Very young player, posted good numbers, won the domestic treble, that's the Spanish La Liga, Supercopa Hispana, and the Copa del Rey, while beating Real Madrid while at it. So there is a very good case for him. Hello, Ronaldo. I kindly like the broadcast. Same goes for you, Hala Madridza. Like the broadcast, please. So I understand the argument for Lamine Yamal, but let's not forget, it's about your contribution as an individual towards what you've helped the team achieve. So Lamine Yamal was a huge factor in Barcelona winning that domestic treble, but also PSG won their domestic treble, and they did extra and went on to win the UEFA Champions League. So that's what gives him the edge. Of course, when you go to country, both did not win the UEFA Nations League. In fact, France lost out to Spain 5-4 in the semi-finals, and he missed that third place playoff game against Germany, which France won by 2-0. Those goals scored by Kylian Mbappe and Michael Olise. So he missed that game through injury. But overall, I think because PSG won the UEFA Champions League, that's for me what I think gives him the added advantage to win the Ballon d'Or. But it's a case of opinion. Let's just wait and see. In fact, that ceremony should be coming up in September, around September, really, the Ballon d'Or ceremony. You say, okay, which is important? If you look at Lamine Yamal, he was an important player in our team with exceptional performances. That I do not agree. That I do not disagree with. He was exceptional. Lamine Yamal was exceptional. But like I said, even Dembele was equally exceptional in that PSG team, because let's look at his numbers. And in terms of his numbers, he scored in the Champions League, he scored 8 goals and provided 6 assists. That's a 14-goal involvement in the Champions League alone. When you look at the domestic league, he was, I think, a joint top scorer. 21 goals in 29 games, 6 assists. That's a 27-goal involvement in 29 games. Those are very good numbers, by the way. And you look, he scored 3 goals in the French Cup. Yes, they won the French Cup. They won the trophy, the champs there, and and they won the League One, and then they won the UEFA Champions League. So those are the things that give Dembele the advantage over Lamine Yamal. Now Yamal also posted very good numbers. That is without a doubt. He posted very good numbers. He scored 9 goals in La Liga, and I think with 13 assists. So that's a 22-goal involvement for a player of his age, only just turned 18 years of age recently. Those are very good numbers. In the UEFA Champions League, 5 goals, 3 assists. Very good numbers. But Barcelona, remember, stopped at the semi-finals. So that counts. And if Spain had won the UEFA Nations League, it could have counted for more. I'm not forgetting the fact that Spain are the Euro champions, by the way. And Lamine Yamal was a huge part of that. I'm not forgetting that. But when with all factors considered, I think Ousmane Dembele still has the edge when it comes to the running for the Ballon d'Or. You say, okay, I think I've answered that. Ronaldo, hello to you too. Ronaldo fans, reply. There are plenty of those. Hello, Madrid. I'm sure is a Ronaldo fan. But it's good to have you on the broadcast. Please like the broadcast. You say, Maestro, you come back to say, look what happened last year. Vinicius Jr. won the UEFA Champions League and scored versus Dortmund and didn't win the Ballon d'Or. Rodri won it. Yes, you say he won it. Who who won the domestic treble? Mm, no, by the way, that was I the treble was in the season for the Champions League when they won the Champions League, the league title, and the FA Cup. That was in 2023 because they beat Man United in the finals, I think, of the FA Cup. Now, when Rodri won it, again, it was his contribution in winning the Euros, but also the league. I think they only won the league, by the way, because Liverpool had won the Carabao Cup in 2023. Then in 2024, it wasn't Man City that won it. I do not think so. It wasn't Man City that won the Carabao Cup. Actually, it was Liverpool that beat Chelsea, I think, by a goal to nil. That goal scored by Virgil van Dijk, for Liverpool to win it. So, yeah. Okay, have I read the entire comment? Okay, you say Lodri won it, domestic treble, same Lamine Yamal, it will be the same outcome. Now, I know Real Madrid fans protested that because they thought Vinicius Jr. should have won the Ballon d'Or and that kind of thing. Yeah, they had an argument, but I do not think there was a contestation on the winner as well. Because here's what happens sometimes, that you have very, very good players competing for the Ballon d'Or, and whoever wins it, eventually people may feel they deserved it, even those that have missed out on it could have equally won it. You remember when Thierry Henry didn't win it? You remember when Frank Lampard didn't win it and they were finishing second? It's not like they didn't deserve it. They deserved it. But it just didn't go to them. So it could be that case. Ronaldo says, a big fan from India. Good to have you. There, the big Ronaldo fan from India. But yeah, but Lamine is a talent show more than the numbers. This year, how fun a player is to watch. Plus, media hype is key in winning, which Lamine is better than Dembele. Lamine has, yes, of course, Lamine Yamal has gotten all the media hype, and on the ice, he played better football than that. You remember in 2006, I think it was Ronaldinho Gaucho that won it. He's the last player, I think, to win the Ballon d'Or. Okay, not the last player to win it, while being exciting on the ice. Now, the media may be on Yamal's side, but like I said, that fact of winning the UEFA Champions League, that doesn't just go away. That doesn't just go away. You could be exciting on the ice, but for as long as you've not won certain things, your chances are lesser. Now, like I said, both Barcelona and PSG won their domestic trebles, but you have that addition of the UEFA Champions League, and that's why, by the way, because Real Madrid had won the La Liga title and won the UEFA Champions League title, they felt that Vinicius Jr. deserved it more. But you look at Vinicius Jr.'s contribution also at the country level, which hadn't been good, really. It hadn't been good. And yet, for Rodri, he had been quite significant in Manchester City's triumphs and also in Spain's triumphs. Spain winning the UEFA Nations League. So that really, sorry, not the UEFA Nations League, the Euros in Germany, 2024, when they beat England 2-1 on the final. Now, although he saw out the final through injury and Martin Zubimendi played, he had been an integral player in that Spain side. So that gave him the advantage, to win. Take this example. Look at who tends to win the Ballon d'Or in a World Cup year. You remember when Modric won it in 2018? He had not won the World Cup because Kylian Mbappe had won it with France. But he had helped Croatia reach the finals of the World Cup. He had been arguably one of the best players in the tournament. 2, he had then won the Champions League in 2018 with Real Madrid. I think Zidane's last consecutive year of winning the UEFA Champions League title. I think they beat Liverpool in the finals. Loris Karius committing those errors. Gareth Bale scoring stunning goals while at it. So, was that the year? Yes, I think that was the year. So, you look at that he came, winning the UEFA Champions League and reached the finals of the World Cup. Now, if Lamine Yamal had also reached the finals of the UEFA Champions League, that could have been an even much bigger debate, because he would have missed on winning it, but he would have been in the final, because finals can be games of fine margins, So I'm not entirely against the idea that Lamine Yamal could possibly win the Ballon d'Or, and that he does. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but I'm simply saying that when you look at the metrics, Ousmane Dembele could be ahead, slightly ahead. So it will boil down to the votes, to the voting blocks and who they favor. The sports media, personalities, the coaches and the captains, and the involvement of the organizers overall. So it will boil down to that. So if they do favor the youngster in Lamine Yamal to win it, the world will sing praise and say he does deserve it. If Dembele wins it, I'm sure many people will say he does deserve it as well. Rafinha for me was an even bigger player at Barcelona last season, and because he's not received extended PR, he's not significant in this conversation. So what would you think if Rafinha won it? For a moment's thought, Maestro, let me know what would be your view if the accolade were to be given to Rafinha? Because before the start of last season, and this I was saying on last night this broadcast, is that Barcelona were considering letting go of Rafinha. They were considering that if good offers had come for him. Then Hansi Flick arrives and he says, "Look, you're going to be a very important player in my squad." And how many times did he wear that Barcelona armband? And how many times did he live to the expectations of a captain? How many times did he snatch all points at the death of it? You remember when you were beating Real Madrid 4-3 in the finals of the Copa del Rey? No, that was it 4-3 or 3-2? That was 3-2. But you remember in the La Liga game that you won 4-3. So Rafinha should be part of this conversation, by the way. He should really, really be part of this conversation. Never mind that he did win the UEFA Champions League football, but he should be part of this conversation. But also, because at country level, things were not really, really happening for him. Brazil have not been in the best of their form. That sort of puts him a bit behind in the pecking order. You say if Rafinha wins it, you will be very happy. But it's hard for him to win because of the media hype. Yes, he just doesn't have the media hype. But if we are being honest, in terms of overall contribution to the team, I think I would even put Rafinha ahead of Lamine Yamal, in terms of taking responsibility for the team, in terms of guiding the team as a senior player, because the manager walks in and he embraces you and he gives you that lot of responsibility. It's not easy to be a Barcelona captain. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders, with all the media scrutiny that goes on with, first of all, being a Barcelona player, later on being a Barcelona captain, and then you live to those expectations and you post all those numbers that Rafinha did post last season. I keep checking. I think he had a 56 goal involvement in about 57 games, 34 goals across all competitions, and I think about 22 assists. Figures around that, really. So if he had the media hype, the equivalent to that what of Lamine Yamal has received, I think he could be well ahead of that conversation. So yeah, Pedri also deserves a mention. Yeah, he deserves a mention indeed. Pedri, again, that speaks to what we were saying earlier, that sometimes players that are not involved, in these numbers of assists, goals, that do not have huge numbers of those, tend to get lesser recognition. And that's what we are saying about Nuno Mendes. That's what we are saying about Vitinha. And the other player that I would add to that cohort is Akraf Hakim, But when you look at the entirety of that PSG team, far as last season was concerned, all those players hardly placed a foot wrong. Take away their horrible display against Chelsea at the finals of the FIFA Club World Cup. But when you look at the entirety of their season, Gianluigi Donnarumma in that goal, when was the last time a goalkeeper won the Ballon d'Or? Really? But they do not get those honorable mentions because we are so much focused on these forward players that are scoring the goals, that are providing the assists, and things of that nature. Look at a player like Marquinhos in that defense. Look at a young player at the age of 20, João Neves in that midfield. You look at Nuno Mendes at left back. What did he do wrong? You look at a player like Desiree Doué, only 19 years of age. So when it comes to honorable mentions, I think there is a lot of players that we can give credit to that. A player like Pau Kubasi, by the way, they're not getting the recognition they deserve just because they're not the ones scoring the goals and posting all these, assists and things of that nature. But these were very, very important players to that Barcelona side, So let's take nothing away from these players that play in defense, the goalkeepers, the midfielders, the Fabian Ruiz of this world, very, very significant players. So I do agree that Pedri deserves an honorable mention. Then you say, when we didn't have Pedri, we played bad. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Gavi, what's happened to Gavi? I do not think he's progressed well the way Pedri has progressed. I do not mean to say he's gone bad, but he risks becoming the next Ansu Fati. By the way, that's what I feel. He's a very, very good player, but he could risk being the next Ansu Fati at Barcelona. He could risk being the next Nicolo Zaniolo at AC Roma. He could risk being that. So, and I do not want that for him. So tell me what's happening with Gavi. To be honest, Rafinha played out of position and he has 38 goals, 26 assists across all competitions. Thanks for the correction there on the goals and assists there. Yes, I think the numbers I quoted came in before the season was done. Agafanov from Russia. Hello to you, to my brother. Good to have you back on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast. But yeah, very, very interesting debate to have about the FIFA Ballon d'Or. But I think in the larger context of things, there's a lot of players that do deserve honorable mentions. When you look at Barcelona, when you look at PSG, and by the way, let's not forget, you see, for example, because in Napoli, they only won the Scudetto, we're not talking about players like Scott McTominay. And because Inter Milan did not win the domestic league and they lost the UEFA Champions League in horrible fashion, we're not talking about players like Denzel Dumfries, We're not talking about them. We're not talking about Nico Barrera in that midfield, So it happens that way, that when you win something, it helps. And that's why we're not having conversations about those. We're not talking about Mohamed Salah simply because Liverpool crashed out of the UEFA Champions League at the round of 16 and they only won the Premier League title. They lost the Carabao Cup final to Newcastle. The FA Cup was lifted by a Crystal Palace side that nobody saw coming, really, in hindsight. The UEFA Europa League final was won by Tottenham, a Tottenham side that had been significantly horrible in the domestic league. So that's why none of their players are in these conversations. But Mohamed Salah would be really be part of this conversation. But also, the Africa Cup of Nations is going to be played in December after the ceremony is done. So his contribution in the Africa Cup of Nations for Egypt will not stand to count in as far as this calendar year is concerned. You say the injury to Gavi impacted him, but he is still really good. He's still really good. He played deeper in midfield, so more like a CDM, but he has still big potential. I do not think he will be like Ansu Fati. I'm not saying Ansu Fati is a bad player, but I'm saying, you remember with Ansu Fati, again, it was injuries that cost him his career to sort of not achieve the progress that it would have achieved, So overall, in that sort of sense, but that is one of those really, really exciting players on the ball. He's quiet in the game. The way we saw Sergio Busquets, the way you see Martin Zubimendi, they play a game and they sort of look quiet in the game. But when you look at their overall contribution and when you play without them, that's when you wake up to appreciate and say, this is a very, very significant player. You say, because the medical team under Flick is way better than the medical team under Ernesto Valverde. If you know him, when Fati got injured, okay, yeah, okay, let's hope for the better, because I've seen a lot of exciting young players that have not reached their full potential, and I usually go back to Nicolo Zaniolo at AC Roma. There was another player that was another left-footed player. They both, I think, suffered anterior cruciate ligament injuries around the same time, and things were never the same for them. But they were very, very exciting players. You go to Real Madrid, and there's a lot of exciting young players that are not living to their potential. Brahim Diaz, Adagula looks like he's going to blossom under Xabi Alonso. Enric is not getting enough game time, but he's a very exciting player. I go back to Man United when they had a player like Alan Smith. He didn't live to his full potential. I go to Arsenal during the days of Jack Wilshere. He didn't live to his full potential due to injuries. Vasilik Abdiabe. We've seen those players one too many times. By the way, another player that didn't live to his full potential was Bojan Kaki at Barcelona. The other was Ibrahim Afellay. Unfortunately for them, they came up during the times when Messi, David Villa, Iniesta were all blossoming. Pedro were blossoming, and so they did not have much room in that Barcelona team. But they were very exciting players that didn't live to their full potential. So yeah, that is food for thought. But anyways, allow me move on to that Liverpool game against AC Milan, because Liverpool are in action today against AC Milan. That game is coming today. That game is coming today, and for Liverpool, I would say I'm waiting to see how Arne Slot tinkers his team, how he goes, where he places, where he places, what's his name, Florian Wirtz. He did play as a number 10 in that game against Stoke City behind closed door friendly. I'm waiting to see how whether Darwin Núñez gets game time. They are looking to move him on. I'm looking to see whether Hugo Ekitike gets a bit of game time, although I feel the game may come a little too early for him. And the way he assembles, I'm looking to see how Jeremy Frimpong defends. I've seen him go forward. He's a very, very exciting talent. I'm looking to see how he does defend, how Milos Kakes fits into this team. Then are we going to see a sacrifice in that Liverpool midfield to accommodate Florian Wirtz? Do we see Alexis McAllister playing alongside Ryan Gravenberch and Florian Wirtz ahead of them? And then we have a Hugo Ekitike or Darwin Núñez accommodated alongside Cody Gakpo and Mohamed Salah. We all know that Bayern Munich want to sign Luis Diaz, so I'm waiting to see how everything plays out. Then on the side of AC Milan, Mike Maignan, that's a goalkeeper, missed the game against Arsenal, but I want to see how Samuel Ritchie fares in that midfield. Based on what I saw of them against Arsenal, Rafael Leao, very, very exciting player, 25 years of age. For me, I think Arsenal, if they are looking to sign a left-sided winger, they should look to sign Rafael Leao ahead of Rodrigo Goes. And I know I'll get a bit of stick from Arsenal fans on that, but I'm willing to take it. I would stand on my ground on that. I think I want to see how he fares against Liverpool. Very, very exciting player. He played in the front two, and how Maximiliano Allegri looks to assemble his team. Of course, majority of them are youngsters. Players are just back from pre-season, and they're not having the freshest of legs there. You're saying they signed Madueke already. They didn't want Rodrigo anymore. No. Noni Madueke was signed as a backup player for Bukayo Saka on the right wing. Now, on the left wing, they have Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard. And me, I'm of the view that they should let go of Leandro Trossard and keep Gabriel Martinelli and sign a new winger. And for that, I would recommend Rafael Leao. But also, they are interested in signing Ebeleche Ize, who can play as an attacking midfielder, but also has ability to play on the left wing. So, for me, I feel that's another side of the pitch they need to correct. Gabriel Martinelli is a very, very good player, but he's refused to go to the next level, possibly because of the way the manager wants him to play. But when you go back to that 2022-2023 season, when he scored 15 goals, that was the best we've seen Gabriel Martinelli in an Arsenal jersey, really. So, and he's not posted those numbers again since. Last season, I think he scored 8 goals and provided either 2 or 4 assists, thereabout. So, we need to see him back to his very best. You say Rodrigo is mainly a Liverpool target. No, Rodrigo is and a very serious Arsenal target. They made exploratory talks with his camp back in May. However, the player is still a bit undecided. I think he doesn't want to leave Real Madrid, but also Real Madrid have not put him on the shelves for sale. That's for starters. But let's wait and see. Liverpool are interested in signing Rodrigo Goes if they lose Luis Diaz. But if they keep a hold of Luis Diaz, then they may not sign Rodrigo Goes. Last summer, yes, they wanted to sign Antonio Gordon as well. So there's still room for a winger at Liverpool. So, but most of it is largely contingent on them moving on Luis Diaz, which they wouldn't have wanted to do because last season he had a very, very good season. He scored 17 goals across all competitions, 13 of them coming in the Premier League, where he also provided 5 assists, which was the best season in the last 3.5 years he's been at Liverpool. So yeah, you say Barcelona wants Rafael Leao. Please don't go to Arsenal, Rafa. Barcelona, why are you being too greedy? You've just signed Marcus Rashford. He can play on that left wing. You already have Rafinha, you have Lamine Yamal, you have Ferran Torres, you have Fermin Lopez, you have Dani Olmo, you have Robert Lewandowski. Why do you want to take, Rafael Leao? Please, do not be too greedy. You say the umbrella that got sided. You say the umbrella that got sided because it is too wet. I do not understand what that phrase means. Kindly indulge me on that one. But Barcelona, do not be too greedy. Why do you want to be like Chelsea? Because Chelsea are the kind of team that every good player that there is, they want to sign. Newcastle wanted João Pedro, they jumped and signed him. Manchester United were leading the race to sign Liam Delap, they jumped to that and signed him. Rodrigo is available, they want to sign him. Arsenal want to sign Xavi Simons, they jumped into the conversation and they are already in talks with RB Leipzig and the players camp to sign him. Liverpool wanted to sign Jorel Hato as well as Arsenal. Of course, even Chelsea had interest, but Chelsea jumped in the line first. Man United wanted to sign Jovan Quenda in January. They jumped in and signed him and left him at Sporting Lisbon for a season and a half loan. A couple of teams wanted to sign Dario Esugo. They went to Las Palmas and signed him. Clubs want to sign Emmanuel Emega from Strasbourg. Chelsea want to sign him. Basically, Chelsea want to sign every single player out there. So please do not be the Chelsea of La Liga. Please, Barcelona, do not be that. You say it's a metaphor for Rodrigo. Oh, the umbrella got sided because it's too wet. Now, by the way, my reservations about Rodrigo. One, he's a very, very good player. But when you look at the way modern football is played, his insistence on saying, I want to play on the left wing. I mean, you do not have it's not like you are cut out or tailored to play in that position. Modern football is about roles. You're given a role, go and implement that role. Whether it's left wing, right wing, center, half, false nine, whatever, go and play that role. So for me, it shouldn't be an excuse for Rodrigo to be poor at his game. He's a very, very good player, but when it also comes to his counter press, I feel there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And yet, Rafael Leao, from what I've seen, is capable of doing that really, really well. So for me, that's why I'm saying Arsenal had better have their sights on Rafael Leao. Then the other player I'd mentioned that they should be signing is Xavi Simons. And indeed, they've explored Xavi Simons, but even Bayern Munich are interested in signing Xavi Simons. Very, very exciting Dutch international, only 22 years of age, can play left wing, right wing, center forward. Very exciting player, really, Xavi Simons. So you say he helped them when it was raining, when they were bad. Remember the UEFA Champions League final 2022. I think that's when they beat Liverpool once again. But now they do not want him anymore, although he helped them through hard times, although he's still amazing. Yeah, but Real Madrid have behaved like that. You remember when Angel Di Maria helped them win the La Decima in 2014 when they beat Atletico de Madrid 4-1 in the final? They sold him to Man United the subsequent season. Tell me, what foot wrong had Mesut Ozil placed before he got sold to Arsenal? He hadn't placed a foot wrong. You remember when they sold Gonzalo Higuain, I think, to Napoli, you know? He hadn't done much wrong. He was scoring 22 goals plus in a season. But of course, they had Karim Benzema, they had Cristiano Ronaldo, they had signed Gareth Bale, later on, so they needed to create room. So that's how Real Madrid operate. They wake up and say, he's a very good player, but we need to make money out of him. They'll sell you regardless of what your contributions have been. You remember Cristiano Ronaldo? Who would have thought that Real Madrid would wake up one day and say Cristiano Ronaldo is for sale? It's not like Cristiano Ronaldo had sort of gone, that he had significantly dropped in his performances, that he was no longer capable of, wearing that white jersey for Real Madrid. No, it was never the case. But Florentino Perez woke up and said, yeah, we are shipping you off, and Juventus are interested, so we are welcoming the offer. So, same with Jules Koundé. We converted him to a right back. I mean, I watched Jules Koundé at Sevilla, and he was a very exciting player. And Barcelona signed him. Of course, I would have loved him to come to the Premier League. Chelsea and Arsenal were among the clubs who were interested at the time. He ended up at Barcelona. You played him at right back, and then suddenly there's some bit of fatigue about Jules Koundé. Yes, he's a bit of. Sometimes he makes silly mistakes, like that mistake I think he made in that goal that Barcelona considered against Borussia Dortmund in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. So yeah, you say, but Flick would beat him up if he says no. What team do you support? I do support Arsenal, by the way, and Real Madrid as well. But my first love is with football, regardless of what those clubs have. My first love is with football. So that's why I can objectively speak about, all majority of teams without any bias or whatsoever. But I do pay allegiance to Arsenal and Real Madrid in the Spanish La Liga. So, but my favorite player of all time is Ronaldinho Gaucho de Assis Moreira. I can see Royal Tampan says, breaking news, Liverpool agree 175 million pounds sterling to buy Isak from Newcastle United. I've not seen that news anywhere, so I do not think that's true. But you never know; things can tend to happen very, very fast. With these transfers, you go to bed when a player is nowhere near a move, and then suddenly there's a move. But that news is not true, at least to the best of my knowledge and my sources. There's no agreement for Alexander Isak. Just because they're still trying to find solutions with us, Newcastle there. We just extended Koundé's contract, actually. Well, yeah, just because you've extended the contract doesn't mean you do not move on the player. I've seen those things happen. Didn't you extend Ansu Fati's contract? Didn't you get shipped to AC Monaco with an option to buy for about 12 million euros? So yeah, it can happen. It's about Barcelona protecting their valuation of the player, because once he's on a good contract, then when it comes to the negotiating table, they can command a higher fee. So yeah, while that contract is an appreciation of his services, I wouldn't entirely say that we can't wake up and he's been sold. Because the way big teams operate sometimes is surprising to their own fans as well. So yeah, I do understand that bit. I completely understand. Now, Koundé is more than important by far. Is more than important than Ansu Fati by far. Yeah, I do acknowledge that. He can play as a centre back, he can play as a right back, so he's more important a player in that team. But yeah, let me tell you, big teams tend to make odd decisions. They will sell players that, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo was furious when they sold Mesut Ozil. And then the subsequent season was even more furious when they sold Angel Di Maria. He was wondering to himself, what the hell are we doing? You know, he wasn't happy with those decisions, but they were made anyway. So it happens. It does happen. It does happen. So what have we missed, guys? What have we not discussed in regards to? We've talked about the Liverpool game, although not at very great length, like would have loved to do. Guys, if we do lose sound, please do not hesitate to let me know, because my microphone may run out of battery. So, anyways, so then that game between Newcastle and Arsenal, like I said, is coming. So let's wait and see. I think for me, when it comes to preseason friendly games, usually you never know what the manager's intentions are. Usually they are to test out different formations, different players. So we can't even sit here and predict the starting lineup, but you never know. It could be Mamardashvili in goal, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kakes starting ahead of Conor Bradley and Andy Robertson, respectively. Virgil van Dijk playing alongside Ibrahim Konate, Ryan Gravenberch. It could be Wataru Endo that starts in that midfield alongside Dominic Soboslai, Brian Vitz ahead, Cody Gakpo, Mo Salah, maybe Hugo Ekitike starts ahead, maybe Darwin Núñez starts ahead. That could be on the side of Liverpool. So let's just wait it out and see how everything will be in that respect. In regards to the AC Milan side, anything can happen. By the way, I'm trying to find what their starting 11 look like in that game against Arsenal that they did play against Arsenal recently. What their starting 11 looked like, but it was filled with a bunch of youngsters. Of course, Fikayo Tomori in that team. Then you had what's his name? I forget. But let me try to find that game, AC Milan versus Arsenal. I'm trying to find some of those players that did start that game. Yes, here it is lineups. Yes, okay, yes. Pavlovic, Samuel Ricci. Like I said, I'm waiting to see. Yes, Christian Pulisic is the one that started alongside Rafael Leao. Although the setup looked more like a 5-4-1, but essentially it was a 3-5-2. That's the way they played. Ruben Loftus-Cheek was in that midfield, and then Yunus Musa, very exciting player by the way to watch. That's Yunus Musa, a very exciting player to watch. But Allegri still has a lot to do in terms of getting this AC Milan side ready for this AC Milan side. Anyways, on the side of Arsenal, we play Newcastle tomorrow. That's on Sunday. Again, I wait to see how they will assemble equally, but let's expect, maybe many changes. Youngsters getting game time. Max Doman, very exciting in that AC Milan game. Mali Salmon, we could see more of him. You say you're very lucky to sign Christian Mosquera. He always plays really well against us, and he's a top centre back. By the way, congrats. Thank you on that. By the way, I was surprised on how Barcelona and Real Madrid slept on the job in signing a player like Christian Mosquera, a player that has played 70 games for Valencia in the last 2 seasons, very well knowing that Barcelona did struggle defensively last season. Excuse me. I was very surprised. I was very surprised of how Arsenal beat them to the punch. Yes, I do understand that the player would have preferred to join Arsenal, but it's Barcelona, it's Real Madrid, Real Madrid, you have David Alaba, who uh, who is always injured. You have Farland Mendy, who doesn't get out of the sick bay literally. Antonio Rudiger and Eder Militao, but more importantly, Eder Militao have all struggled with injuries, in the last couple of seasons. So both Real Madrid and Barcelona have struggled defensively, in my view. And I was indeed surprised of how Arsenal beat them to the signing. Okay, for Real Madrid, I understand they signed Greenhausen and they were pushing to sign Alvaro Carreras from Benfica, who they eventually gotten. But particularly for Barcelona, shipping in 6 goals against Inter Milan in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, shipping in 3 goals against Borussia Dortmund, at the quarterfinals. I mean, I thought you guys could have done more to get a player like Christian Mosquera. You say we struggled defensively because of our offensive trap tactic, not because of the players' quality. Look at 2023, same players, different tactics, best defense in the world. Yes, the tactics are an issue, but you see, what your system exposed last season is that 1v1, those defenders are not that good. They are easily beatable. One-on-one, they are very beatable. And if you, again, I've not watched a whole lot of Christian Mosquera, but for the clips I've managed to catch up on, the 1 versus 1, he looks very, very decent. So that's why I think that Barcelona would have used a player of his caliber, So I understand you commit so many numbers, especially on offensively, to try and win the ball back, quickly in the final third, in the midfield, in the opponent's half, which exposes your back line and that kind of thing. I understand that kind of tactic. It's one that I've seen, that I saw teams like Burnley try to play with. I've seen it with Tottenham Hotspurs, playing that kind of system under Ange Postecoglou. No wonder you were sacked. So you need defenders that are very, very good 1v1 situations for you to play that kind of system. Oh, apologies on the internet glitch. I think the internet is, that's its way of telling me that I need to sign out. It's been nearly 2 hours of us doing this podcast. But anyways, let's look at the latest from the world of gossip and transfer speculation. Apparently, Newcastle have a strong interest in signing Wolves and no way forward. That's Jørgen Strand Larsson, as a possible replacement for Alexander Isak. I do not think he's a very good player, but he did post very, very good numbers as Strand Larsson, but good player. Then Cam Wilson has agreed to personal terms with West Ham to join them as a free agent from Newcastle. Manchester City have made a fresh approach to Newcastle fullback Tino Livramento and are willing to pay up to £50 million. Newcastle do not want to sell the 22-year-old England international. In fact, some reports did suggest that they could ask for as high as £80 million to try and fend off that interest. Aston Villa rejected Villa bid for Emiliano Martinez. Wait, I didn't understand that. Aston Villa rejected the Villa bid. What Villa bid? Oh, yes. Manchester United made a loan proposal to Aston Villa to try and sign Emi Martinez. So they rejected that. It was, I think it was a loan proposal with an option to buy for the subsequent season. And Villa want to sell for about £40 million or £35 million because they need to bring in some more cash for their PSR, position. So yeah, they did turn that offer down. Then Bayern Munich have resumed talks with Liverpool to try and sign Luis Diaz. The expectation is that they will come in with a second bid in the region of about 75 to 80 million euros, but are not willing to go above that. Then apparently 2 Saudi Pro League top clubs are interested in signing Antony for Manchester United, as well as a return to Real Betis, where he played last season, is looking increasingly unrealistic. Real Betis want the player, they just do not have enough money to sign him. But that's according to Sky Sports. Then Luke Shaw could explore a move away from Manchester United with after 11 seasons, with Saudi Pro League clubs are interested, but let's wait and see. That's according to the Sun. Usually reports from the Sun, I take them with a pinch of salt. So then Chelsea have have had a bid of more than 60 million pounds turned down by Juventus to try and sign Kenan Yildiz again. Arsenal were also interested in Kenan Yildiz, 22, only 20 years of age. That's according to La Gazzetta dello Sport. He's a very, very exciting player. I don't think Juventus would want to lose him, at least not at this stage. They saw the mistakes, the mistake they committed in losing Dinhausen to Bournemouth, and now he's gone for 50 million pounds to Real Madrid just after one season. Then Everton have added Southampton's Tyler Dibling to their list of targets to improve on their flanks. The 19-year-old has been subject to speculation, linking him with a potential move to Manchester United. Very exciting player. Then Leeds United have made a bid in the excess of 26 million pounds to try and sign Feyenoord winger Igor Paxio. Now the Brazilian 25-year-old international is a target for Roma and Olympic Marseille. So let's wait and see how things will transpire. Player to watch is Igor Paxio. Leeds, Marseille, and Roma are all interested. Roma just signed Ivan Ferguson from Brighton and Hove Albion. They are making good additions. I think Gian Piero Gasperini is going to be one to watch next season. Any news about Mickey Moore? Mickey Moore, not that I've had in recent times. It's a bit gone quiet in the last couple of weeks, really, especially on my side of the feed, unless you've had something exciting on that side or in that respect. But let's wait and see if there will be more news on him in the coming days. But yeah, not much. Maybe they could look to loan him out and get him more playing time. The same way Chelsea are exploring to loan out Mark Gui or to possibly a Premier League team or a player within the UK to try and find and help him with his development. It's the next news in the BBC football gossip. Well, I'll check that out. I'll check that out and see what there is to that. I'll check it out. But I think they can ship him out on loan. You know, the same way Chelsea are trying to do. By the way, after losing Liam Delap, Ipswich Town were exploring the deal to sign Mark Gui from Chelsea on loan. So let's just wait it out and see. Otherwise, guys, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Thank you so much, Maestro Pedri, for being with us for this broadcast. You're reading BBC Football Gossip. When it comes to speculation and gossip, I turn to BBC because they make the compilation quick. But the others, and then I also get from other sources too. But the reason as why I turn to BBC is that they narrow down all the exaggerated, transfer rumors and speculation. And you know what happens is that during a transfer window, there's a lot of gossip, there's a lot of speculation. If you follow papers like for example, the Sun, I think Daily Star, they have so much rumor, and sometimes there's not too much trueness to it. So you have to filter that out. What do I think about Viktor Gyokeres? I think he's an exciting prospect. He has a lot of doubters to prove. He's shown a lot of desire to join Arsenal. He's been ambitious in asking for the shirt number 14, given its legendary status at Arsenal and things of that nature. He's capable of scoring in big games, even though he's not done plenty of that in the Portuguese league, which they say is significantly down in terms of strength, behind even the Sky Bet Championship. People forget that he also played in the Sky Bet Championship and posted good numbers while at Coventry City. That was for the 2022-2023 season. 2021-2022 season, and then 2022-2023 campaigns. So he scored a hat-trick in the Champions League against Manchester City. People forget that. And by the way, in any case, Arsenal struggles are not scoring against big teams, by the way. Their struggles in the last two seasons have not been beating up against big teams because they've not lost to the big five or big six in the last two campaigns. Their struggles are against small teams. Teams like Bournemouth, teams like Fulham, teams like West Ham, those kinds of teams. Teams like Newcastle, those are the teams they've struggled against. Teams that play with a low block, teams like Everton, those are the teams they've struggled against. So if he can come and bang goals against those teams, it won't matter his performances when it comes to the big games. Look at about Erling Haaland. He's one of those players that tends to fizzle down in big games. Even though he needs maybe one moment to pop up and score a goal. I know he scored against Arsenal, but he's that kind of player. But what do you have against Erling Haaland? He posts all the good numbers. So I think he's a very, very exciting player. I'm just waiting to see how he fits within the Arsenal system, and if he can score, at least half the number of goals he managed to score last campaign. 54 goals in 52 games there. I can see we have Mukwet. Why didn't Modric play versus Arsenal? I mean, Modric he was part of Real Madrid's squad that reached the semi-finals of the FIFA Club World Cup. So he's still on holiday. He's still enjoying his time off. The same way you did see Noni Madueke for Arsenal. So that is there. Then also, you asked, okay, do you think Haaland will return to good form this season? I think it will depend on the overall play of Manchester City. If Manchester City have a good season, he will have a brilliant season. But by the way, guys, 21 goals is not bad. Only that he set his bar so high that anything below it, we see it as an underperformance. But overall, Manchester City weren't in their best form last season. But because I get the feeling that there's been one too many changes within that Manchester City team, they may struggle next season, maybe not as much as they did last season, but I envision them struggling a bit. Then last year wasn't good. Yeah, indeed, last year wasn't good by measure of his own standards. Rodri's injury had a lot of impact on Man City. Yeah, it had a lot of impact because it came early on in the season. I think in early October when they were playing against Arsenal in that 2-2 draw at the Etihad Stadium. But also, ever since his return from injury, he hasn't looked very, very decent. And yet, apparently, they are willing to listen to offers for Nico Gonzalez, who they signed in January from AFC Porto. Sorry, from FC Porto, not AC, from FC Porto. So, okay, Manchester City have a very, very good team. Because when you have a player like Gianni Reinders, you have Nico Gonzalez, you have Akushanov, you have Omar Mamouche, Bout Erling Haaland, Jeremy Deku, Savinho, you do have Phil Foden if he can get back to the best of his form. That's a very good composition of players. Of course, they are going to move on some players. I heard that they are willing to listen to offers for Mateo Kovacic, so he could be moved on. Stefan Ortega is going to be a player to be moved on because Manchester City want to sign back James Trafford from Burnley. So let's keep our eyes on that. That means by the Newcastle lose another of their top targets. So again, we'll do our season predictions before the start of the season, and I'll give my overall assessment on these kinds of teams. But I get the feeling that, but because when you sign a player like Ryan Ashnory, very, very good left back, you signed Viktor Gyokeres, very exciting Brazilian centre back. You still have Joshko Vadiol, you still have Ruben Diaz, so that's a very good back line. Matthias Nunes, he's not a right back, although he's been played there. But yeah, you still have the experience of Ilkay Gundogan, although he's not the same player he was 2 seasons ago. But yeah, Man City have a very, very good team. They just have to click. Kugoyol Makula. Hi, good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. And thank you for joining us this Saturday morning. Then I can see Royal Tampan for the title race, Liverpool versus Arsenal. Royal Tampan thinks the title race is going to be he thinks it's going to be a 2-horse race between Liverpool and Arsenal. I wouldn't write Chelsea off because their team is starting to click and they've tested a bit of silverware. So they're going to come with that bit of confidence, having won the Conference League and the FIFA Club World Cup. I do not want to write off entirely Manchester City because of who Pep Guardiola is. He's capable of, really turning on the gear up. He's capable of motivating a team. So I do not want to write them entirely off, but I also do not want to disagree with you when we reflect on what happened last season, but also on the way these teams have strengthened their squads when it comes to Liverpool and Arsenal. So yeah, in that kind of sense. But I think Chelsea are going to have, if they can be consistent, they are going to have a huge say on the Premier League title race as well. I remember last season, before we go to December, we were asking, could Chelsea, compete for the Premier League title? And then, of course, they had their blip, I think, around January and February, and they ended up fighting for their lives to qualify for Champions League football. So, yeah, let's not rule them out. But I hope all of you have, subscribed to the broadcast, to the channel, and welcome to the community. Otherwise, I want to wrap this one up. But if you're interested in learning some digital skills like coding, web design, and cyber security, please check out our friends at Ebostate. I will leave their link down in the description. They do offer in-person training sessions as well as online training sessions for their, trainees. You do qualify for a 5% discount if you do enroll this month. I know we only have a couple of days left to it. So yeah, you do qualify for a 5% discount, and they help their trainees find jobs in the dynamic digital world. But thank you so much, Royal Tampan, for being part of this broadcast. Thank you so much, Kungoyol, there for being part of today's broadcast. Mia, I struggle to pronounce your name, but Pedri H, thank you so much for being part of today's conversation. You made the discussion worthwhile. Thank you so much, LFC. Thank you so much, Ronaldo, for being part of today's broadcast. Thank you so much, Taos, Taman Taos. Thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. Thank you so much, Black Orechen. Thank you so much, Owen. Thank you so much, Mariam Narmansi, for being part of this morning's broadcast. It's been a pleasure to have you all. Dennis Jukes, thank you so much for being part of us today. Maestro Pedri, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for making the discussion worthwhile. Thank you so much, guys. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day and a blessed weekend ahead. Let's do this again tonight but if there's any significant news, I do not rule out us coming back before the late night broadcast, but we usually come on back at 11 p.m. So it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. What a time tonight. Paul, you said you're from Spain, and no wonder you said it's night time for you. Yeah, for us it's day. It's 6 minutes to midday here. But thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. It's a pleasure. We'll be back at about 11 p.m. East African time. I suspect it may be morning hours for you that side. But yeah, we'll continue this discussion again. Oh, so it's 11 p.m. in your country. That means you're 10 hours ahead of us. So is it 11 p.m. Friday? Is it 11 p.m. Saturday? Because for us, it's oh, okay. 11 p.m. No. It's 11 a.m., not p.m. It's 11 a.m. It's in Uganda. I'm in Kampala, Uganda. So it's also Saturday here. So it's 11 a.m., 55 minutes past the hour of 11 a.m. in Kampala, Uganda. So yeah. But thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. You made it really, really worthwhile. You expanded our debate when it came to the Ballon d'Or, to Barcelona and what they look to do next season, and everything to do with the Premier League as well. I'll only disagree with you on one item. From a fan's perspective, I'd rather Rafael Leao joins Arsenal as opposed to Barcelona. I do not want to see him at Barcelona. You're already lethal enough with Lamine Yamal and Rafinha. So yeah, let's not spoil this, our situation by having Rafael Leao join Barcelona. Bayern Munich were, by the way, also interested in signing Rafael Leao, but they pivoted more to Luis Diaz, who, by the way, Barcelona were equally interested in signing, and you ended up with Marcus Rashford, who I think will be very, very good for you guys. So otherwise, stay blessed. It was happy to meet you on the broadcast. I wish you the very best of your weekend, and every single one of you. For those of you that like the broadcast, that sent in your comments, thank you so much. Those that watched our broadcast much later after they're done, We do not take your time for granted. It's always a pleasure to have your love and support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.